Goku, I'm asking you, all of you, please save the universe.
Hey everyone, welcome back with Bino Mac, where today we are going to continue our playthrough of Dragon Ball Z Budokai 2. So this is going to be actually the final level of the game. Excuse me, sorry, this is going to be the final level of the game. I'm thinking about who I want. Trunks has got to be one of them, just because he's my favorite, but maybe I'll go Great Saiyaman. Yeah, that's what we'll do. Just because I want to show off his, his super special fighting pose. So yeah, I pretty much, there's not going to be really any cutscenes that we're going to watch in this one for the most part. There might be like one or two with Goku, but this is the last level we're going to deal with. I was thinking of showing off the side mode, probably spaceship in this, but this level takes a little bit longer than I thought, so there's already going to be quite a long playthrough, so we're going to save that for an extra video where I'm just going to, next week I'm just going to play through each of the missions you can do in that game, that side game mode, so that way, you guys can see a little bit of what it's like. It's not my favorite, but, I'll put my thoughts on that when, the time comes. This episode, you guys have heard me in the last couple of episodes talk about all the stuff that, the missing content that we've had and stuff like that. I'm not going to go over that stuff again because, I've talked about that stuff to death. You guys are probably, I pretty much did that for every single video, for the most part, at least half of this playthrough, so I'm not going to go on about any of that stuff, but I will leave the link to the cutting room floor just because, they pretty much were my talking content for the freaking last couple of weeks for this, so, I owe them at least maybe, for anybody who hasn't yet, wants to look at their page and see some cut content for any of the Dragon Ball Z games. But, I love talking about cut content, and you think I'm going to stop, once Budokai 3 hits, you guys are going to be hearing more, but spared for this video, I'll just say that, because I got no more to really speak of. One thing I do want to make a correction, I kept saying that, they took out Android 18's Majin Buu outfit from this game, and they removed it in Budokai 3. That is actually not the case. They did remove Gohan, adult Gohan's freaking Great Saiyaman outfit without the helmet, but, they did not, to their credit, remove Android 18's Majin Buu Saga outfit from Budokai 3, so, they didn't remove everything, so that's pretty cool. And so now, I kind of already spoke about my issues with the stories and the previous things, but we're just going to kind of do a little bit of a recap, because, we got a lot of time anyway, I can give my thoughts on the whole thing at this point, because all this, there's not really any story in this. The story is, you're on the planet of the Supreme Kais in this level, and, take out Kid Buu. That's about it. So, as you can see, once again, I'm going to kind of complain off the bat. It's what I do. It's what I do. Complain about the things I love, give what my ideas and all this other stuff are, and what I think would just be cool ideas if they did things a little bit differently. We got Trunks' time machine. I'd like to think that one of the developers that listen to this, I made this joke like 20 times. They got to go back in time, and we'll have a timeline where all my ideas are, come to fruition. Kind of like how Trunks saved the one timeline that we know of. That's what the developers got to do for the other one. But, all jokes aside, I'm just going to give a little bit of my critiques and stuff on this, on the story, I think. So, we're just going to address Cell and Frieza. They're back again, as you guys can see. I think it's just due to a lack of a larger roster, unfortunately. I have no issues. I think the Cell Juniors and the Saibamen, I think they're used just enough, just the right amount to where it's cool, And it's kind of weird that we got the Cell Juniors, but, hey, I'll take it, right? Just more enemies for the final battle, no big deal. But, yeah, we only had one I think out of all the levels, there's only 2 levels in this game that does not have Cell or Frieza in it. And that's the first one for the Saiyan Saga, and then just the last one, Stage 8, where I'm assuming the idea is that they were absorbed alongside, you know, Gotenks and Piccolo and stuff like that. Obviously, we've seen the results of that, but I'm assuming that they're still just kind of there, and I don't know why they're here. Once again, the actual story of this game mode is not very. It starts out, I wouldn't say strong, but it starts out kind of alright. And just the fact, like, it's cool to see all, like, oh wow, you know, things are kind of going differently a little bit. And they actually did have a little bit of a story going, if you kind of think about it. Whereas now it's just kind of like, here's Buu, fight him. We're here now. But, you know, so starting with stage 1, you know, obviously, you know, I thought it was cool, you know, instead of, usually in the show, obviously, we know, Rats comes first, gets beaten, you know, warns, Vegeta and Nappa, you know, hey, you know, come to Earth for these Dragon Ball things. They heard it all over Scouter, so then Vegeta and Nappa come to, Earth. Well, that's not the case. In the first stage, Nappa and Raditz actually come to Earth by themselves under the orders of their master Frieza. So they're just, you know, they're there for the Dragon Balls, of course. It doesn't really explain how or why, you know, Frieza's looking for the Dragon Balls. I mean, he could, once again, it's just, this game kind of makes a lot of assumptions of if you watch the show or not. We're just going to make the assumption, you know, Frieza somehow heard about it and he needs, you know, immortality and whatnot. And the Namek, you know, Dragon Balls have no bearing in this game. It's just Earth's Dragon Balls with Shenron, which it's kind of cool. I feel like Shenron was awesome in Dragon Ball, but then, you know, once Dende came back and Kami got absorbed and all this other stuff, it just, the Dragon Balls just didn't hold the same meaning anymore. It was cool when they went to Namek to get him to save the Earth's Dragon Balls, but, you know, Shenron's the iconic dragon, and I feel like, you know, they kind of, the actual Dragon Ball part of Dragon Ball just didn't mean as much pretty much after the Cell Saga, or really after the freaking Namek Saga. But to continue on to my point, yeah, so they come to Earth. Goku and friends take care of him pretty much right away, you know, as well as, you know, the Saibamen that were there and planted. Then in Mission 2, Raccoon and Ginyu of the Ginyu Force are with Frieza and the, you know, Muscle Tower and whatnot, and the, just, I think it's just called the Iceland or whatever, Snowy Lands or whatever. So it's cool, it's a nice change of pace, scenery, you know, oh wow, you know, cool. Got other cool stuff that, you know, changing the story and stuff like that. Once again, I think the only complaint I have about that level in particular is that they really should have made it to where Chidori and Zarbon were in the game, and instead of the Ginyu Force, you fight those two on that stage in particular. Other than that, no complaints for that stage. You know, stage number 2, no complaints really at all for stage number 1. A very great introduction stage. The one very small, minute complaint about stage 1 is the Dragon Ball is just a physical object you can grab. And as a kid, I figured that's how all the Dragon Balls worked. So the fact that they were all hidden, you had to search the space, and I don't know, I was just too stupid to freaking read the thing to tell me, you know, square is how you search the space. Yeah, so like I just, as a kid, I never, you know, got the Dragon Balls in this game because of it. And by extension, I never explored any of these areas as a kid. So that's kind of, you know, the one very minor complaint is that just, it was a little misleading, I guess, that you could just pick up the Dragon Balls at any point. They should have just did it where it's a physical object on every stage. And that way it kind of creates that tension of you have to get it before any of the other characters do. But, you know, they, as you can tell, we've already set up the established story of, you know, Frieza and his goons are looking for the Dragon Balls. A good reason as to why they're there, you know, all that sort of stuff. Pretty solid, nice what-ifs. Little bit of a change, but still overall, you know, it makes a little bit of sense if you know the actual source material. Just different enough to make it distinct, or different, I guess. Then, Stage 3, you chase Frieza to Namek. Once again, pretty cool, you know. They don't really explain. I think it might have been something in which, you know, Goku goes back and takes, you know, Raditz or Nappa's ship, just kind of like how he did in the show or whatever. Or actually, that's not true at all. But you know, he does. That's kind of the assumption, is how he chases Frieza and whatnot. You know, it feels like those levels are pretty awesome, just in the sense of, you know, the freshness and the newness. And the only complaint I have about that level is, you know, I just wish that I think it just would have been cool if the Guinea Force were called in for that level specifically. So it kind of just ties into the Stage 2 issue. As then, you know, people would have been a lot more worried. The interactions would have been a lot more fresh, of course. I think the interactions with Frieza up to that point anyway were a little lackluster, but, you know, no big deal in my opinion for that. But, you know, I figured I'd mention my opinions on it anyway, but I'm also under the belief that everybody probably should have had interactions and all sorts of stuff. I'm a little bit of a greedy guy with that. So, Stage 3, pretty awesome. Change of scenery, pretty cool that, you know, you get to, the reason why you're on Namek is a lot more different. Oh, and I guess another complaint is we don't know why Vegeta's on Namek either. You know, he's kind of working under the guise of Frieza and whatnot, but it's kind of like, okay, but why is he here? Did he just happen to be there when all this transpired? How does he know Goku? You know, it's just, the overall story of this is not really well thought out. It's just kind of like, hey, let's throw a bunch of like cool scenarios at you, I guess. And fun levels and a fun game mode and mechanic and stuff like that. It's just, you know, I just wish a little teeny bit more was given to the actual thought process of the story, if that makes sense. So then Stage 4, this is kind of when the issues really start to arise, in my opinion. We have this Android Cell Saga, and, you know, they kind of just rush it. You know, first off, we have the Cyber Rangers, and, you know, I'm a little torn on it, because the Cyber Rangers I just think are hilarious. You know, the fact that Dr. Tro not only thought, he used his research to create these things instead of Android 19, and not only the fact that he thought that, you know, he thought that they actually would be able to help stop Goku. But just the fact that somebody in the development team thought, alright, well, Saibamen are going to return. Now, how are we going to do, you know, somebody was like, no, we can't do that, you know, just blind old Saibamen. And the guys, you know, somebody just in the office said, well, how about if we make them all different colors? You know, I'm sure that guy's boss was like, God damn it, that deserves a raise. You son of a bitch. So, I don't know, I just think it's cool that they did that, and it's nice because there's, like, references and stuff like that to it, I think, in the Xenoverse Saga series. I think they're even all given their own different names, like the green was a Saibamen, and every different color of a Saibamen is, like, given a different name, which, you know, it's nice that they did that, you know. Nice reference as well, and all that sort of stuff. But, so then you have Dr. Tro, and I think they could have made that just its own level, you know? Maybe add some sort of other objective. Maybe once again they could have done it to where, you know, maybe Tro was also looking for, the freaking Dragon Balls or something like that. And you had to defeat him, or get the Dragon Ball first, or something like that, or whatever, you know? I mean, I also could complain and say that they didn't have Android 19, but I don't know, I'm kind of thinking the Cyber Rangers, just the concept of them alone, I think it's just funny enough to where it's like, I kind of don't really care too much that he's not there, but it would have been nice if, like, maybe you defeat him, you know, and the Cyber Rangers, then Android 19, then Dr. Tro, or you had to beat both of them, or something like that. They both show up after the Cyber Rangers, or something like that. I think that would have been a nice little, something to extend the level, I think, you know, and that would be a very acceptable amount of enemies when you think about it to begin with. So that didn't happen though. So then continuing with Stage 4, Part 2 of it, you have the Android Saga, in which Android 17, 18, and 16, you know, they show up, they dispose of Dr. Gero, and kind of like how they do in the show, And they also are just like, you know, we got nothing better to do. We might as well just go and kill Goku. And it's kind of interesting that Android 16 in this game, he's kind of just a killing machine. There's no sense of that, you know, likable personality in him. He gives zero, you know, slices of baloney about the freaking birds, you know, and I kind of like that change, you know, seeing because that's kind of the idea of what he was supposed to be to begin with, and it works for this game really well, so I commend them on that. And it is kind of funny seeing his interactions and how Goku, for whatever reason, feels the need to apologize for each and every time that they freaking interact with each other or run into each other. Sorry, I'm gonna have to win. You know what I mean? Oh man, it looks like I'm gonna have to go and get that freaking Dragon Ball inside the Kid Buu space. But continuing on with that, you know, I think the Budokai, not even the Budokai series, just the Dragon Ball Z games, you know, for the PS2 in general, always kind of had like a weird relationship with the those androids. You know, sometimes they're good, they're usually like just villain characters in all these things, you know. Even though Android 18 is obviously, she's been a good guy, you know, character fighting, you know, a part of the Steve Fighters and whatnot for very longer than she was ever a villain. She was always just treated as a villain, and you know, you never get to play as her in the story modes. And Android 17, I feel like it's the same treatment, but Android 18, I feel like it's just someone who I think they could have, if they really wanted to, you know, they could have done some interesting things with. Like, why can't you play as her at the unlocker? Same with Android 17 and 16. But, you know, maybe, I think it's just because these games just always consider them as nothing more than villains, and that's it, which I can kind of get, but it's also kind of lame at certain points. So once you defeat them, which once again, they could have been their own stage because there is the 3 of them. And I mean, let's not forget that, you know, it was in the last few stages, stage 2 and 3, the only enemies you had only 3. So they definitely could have made that their own stage, but they didn't. And it has the gimmick, once again, of Android 16, his whole thing is he's just hunting down Goku the entire time. Whereas Android 17 and 18, I think they do that, but just not to the same effect. Like, Android 16 will completely ignore any other character on the board unless if they are directly in his way to Goku. So I think that's actually a pretty cool attention to detail type of thing that I think goes a little unnoticed for the most part, I think. So once you're done with that, they could have, you know, had it with the Cell stage be a different one. And obviously the issue arises with here, I kind of didn't really mention with Frieza, but Cell and Frieza, of course, don't have their multiple transformations in this game. They just have their most notable forms, Final Form Frieza and Perfect Form Cell, like how he is now. And if they had more forms of Cell, you know, they could have made whole, you know, stages based off of that, or even just one big stage in which, you know, you defeat Cell in his first form, then you got to beat him in his second, then his third, and, you know, perfect form and all that stuff. But I think because Budokai 1 was the game where it ended on the Cell Saga, I think that's why they kind of went out of their way to try and just say, alright, you know, screw it. These people already have played through this, so we're just going to get past the entire Android Saga in one go, so people don't, you know, so that way people aren't, you know, throwing riots or whatever. Which I think ultimately in the end kind of did them in a little bit, you know. I think that's part of the issue of the game, is that they just kind of glossed over it in a way, when they could have really spread it out and made the missions mean a lot more, while also, you know, I think a later on issue after the Android Saga, as you can see, they really kind of spread the Majin Buu saga very thin at certain levels. So next, you know, stage 4, not too bad, very fun, very long level because of all the stuff that they crammed in. But I think, once again, I'll just say it one last time, they could have made it into 3 separate levels, at least. Then we're going to go to stage 5, and that is when we go back to Area 1, and, you know, Supreme Kai is there, and he's there pretty much to see if Goku is always worth, you know, all the stories. Are they, you know, true about Goku, about his fighting ability and all this and that. And so you beat Supreme Kai. Then after that, Babidi and Deborah appear. And, you know, they're hanging out by the cocoon of Majin Buu, and they're trying to figure out a way to, you know, resurrect him. Vegeta's just kind of hanging off to the side somewhere, and chances are, you know, Goku will run into Vegeta, and Vegeta's kind of back to his old, you know, crap again, you know. He wants to fight Goku, you know, now that things are apparently somehow peaceful, even though they aren't. You know, he doesn't care, he just wants his battle with Goku, so, you know, they have the fight, kind of like how they did in the show. But then, you know, once you get to the last part of the level, Babidi resurrects Cell and Frieza, turns them into Majin warriors under his control, and turns Vegeta into Majin Vegeta. Then you have to, you know, avoid fights, which is a very cool mechanic, because if you have 3 fights in that level, you lose. You can only have up to 2 fights and still win. And I think that's a cool mechanic because you have to have at least 2 fights in order to unlock, you know, the body's mind control, so you can play as Majin Vegeta. So you have to do it accordingly. You have to let any of the Majin characters attack you first, and then attack that same Majin character to unlock it, while also making sure that you do not get in a fight with anybody else in the level. And you need the special fruit for that. So I think that level was very, very well done. The only complaint I have about that, I just wish he had a different stage to fight in, because stage 1, 4, and 5 all share the same plains arena. So it would have been cool for just a nice change of scenery. But overall, you know, not bad. And I guess, you know, I kind of mentioned this a little bit. You know, they could have done something in which, you know, they had Yamu and Spopovich. I don't know what the heck is how you pronounce that dude's name. Yakin and Pui. I think, you know, they could have maybe been stand-ins instead. But obviously nobody ever really gave a shit about those Majin characters. That's why they're never in the games. You know, Yamu and Spopovich, I think, are just incredibly lame, especially, in my opinion. I think Yakin, you know, I think he's a pretty interesting idea for a character, but obviously he just doesn't show up much. And Deborah shows up, and he's in the, you know, a lot of the games is like pretty much the main representative of like Babidi and all these games, but they don't really, for some reason in this game, they don't use Deborah after his initial appearance, which just doesn't make any sense to me. So, continue on to stage 6. Like I said, they do not have Deborah come back, which makes 0 sense to me, because Babidi is still there. And so, you know, Babidi is still trying to get to the center, and for some reason, even though we apparently destroyed his cocoon in stage 5, Babidi's able to just go to the freaking center of the Sky Pier and resurrect Majin Buu anyway. So I feel like there should have been a better way to do that, but you know, it's whatever. It's a means to an end. And yeah, they could have even done something where, like, the reason why Deborah isn't there is because Babidi then somehow sacrifices Deborah to resurrect Majin Buu or something like that as a last ditch effort or something like that. I think that would have been pretty awesome if they went with that. Yeah, it's non-canon, that's not how it happened, but this whole freaking story is non-canon and not how it actually happens. But, you know, Cell, Vegeta, and Frieza all show up once again. And I think that it's still not too bad at that point, but I still kind of have the issue of... Oh.
Frieza, this is your last warning. Go back to where you came from.
Gladly, once I defeat you.
Back to what I was saying, I don't really have an issue with, even though I think a lot of people, even the first time that Cell and Frieza came back in stage 5, were kind of like, wait, what the heck, I just beat these guys, why are they back? I didn't have an issue with them coming back in stage 5, but man, when they came back in stage 6, you know, okay, they're still the Majin Warriors, they got rid of Deborah, whatever, but you know, maybe they'll leave after this level. So then Majin Buu is resurrected. Babidi is killed by Majin Buu just like Ellie is in the show, very quickly as well. And everybody is turned back to normal. At this point, the game doesn't even know what the heck to do, you know. Cell and Frieza have amnesia. That's a pretty cool idea, you know, since they're no longer Majin Warriors, they just have no idea what went on. Vegeta, they just didn't even know what the heck to do with him, and that's just kind of lame. Like, they couldn't have had something where, like, Vegeta, you know, he's like, hey, I still want to fight, or something like that, and they don't give you any voice interaction with that, and that's kind of lame in my opinion. But, you know, you've probably heard that's probably kind of lame in my opinion like 5 times in this video. But then, you know, obviously there's some Easter eggs in that are pretty cool, like, you know, Vegeta, if he interacts with Majin Buu first, you know, he can blow himself up, just like in the show. So I think that's a pretty cool idea, and thing that they went with, and I think Vegeta coming back, I think they made it worth it. Then stage 7, they're in the hyperbolic time chamber. This is when things really start getting just really lame. Like, just the story kind of just like, you know, poops the bed, for lack of a better word, poop. So there's no mention of the hyperbolic time chamber or whatever. What the heck? Okay, my freaking controller just died, so that's why I lost. So it's gonna have to be a second real quick. I'll just keep talking, I guess, while I charge my thing real quick. Don't worry, it'll only take a second. Once it's plugged in, I can still keep playing. But yeah, back to the stage 7 interaction. So yes, in the context of the show, you know, that they're kind of just going based off events what happened in the show at that point. That's why they're in the hyperbolic time chamber. But in the context of the story of this game, they kind of just throw all sort of logic out the window, and it's just, you know, there was never any mention about, you know, Goten and Trunks in the hyperbolic time chamber. There was never any mention to them like, hey, go to the hyperbolic time chamber, or anything by Piccolo. It's just, hey, this is what happened in the show, so, you know, we're kind of ideas how to take this story further, so we're just gonna follow the show at this point. You know, we got no more ideas, which I think is just, you know what I mean. That's kind of my first issue with it. Second, once again, Frieza and Cell come back again. It doesn't, like, you can make the argument, okay, Vegeta's the one who blew himself up, that's why he's not there. But really, you couldn't have just, like, not had those two come back for that level. Like, I get it, they're there for the fact of they need bodies in there, but also Buu interacts with them or anything like that, then they, in turn, those two will become absorbed by Majin Buu, showing off the fantasy fusions of this game. So Super Buu can absorb Frieza, and, you know, he has like a mix of like moves, and they have the special moves, and the special cool what if appearance, and same with Cell. Very uncomfortable designs, but, you know, still it's cool that the game went out of the way to do that. That was awesome. Just, you know, the fact that Frieza and Cell are there, though, is just so goofy. Like, even on that level, you didn't see it in that interaction, because I didn't get to Frieza. You know, 9 times out of 10, they just walk into Buu, or Buu just walks into them. So, like, their presence being there is just pointless, for the most part. But there's literally, even Goku, the game is kind of just fed up with those two appearing in every level. If Goku walks up to Frieza in that level, Goku and him have one interaction. It's just, all they say is Goku goes, "Why are you still here?" I think, something along that line. And Frieza's just kind of irritated. He just goes, "Shut up." That's it. So they even ran out of, like, interesting ways for these characters to interact with each other. And, you know, once again, I mean, if they had maybe a Deborah or something like that, maybe a they could have just even had a freaking, I get it's not really something, they're not really on the same level as a freaking Saibamen or a Cell Jr., but they could have had, like, just generic Majin Warrior or something like that. I mean, it would have been better than nothing, man, or whatever they had, you know, with Cell and Frieza, because all you're doing is just making, you know, Cell and Frieza lame by comparison. It's just tired of fighting the same characters over and over again and exposing how small the roster in this game kind of is with this story mode. You know, like in Budokai 3, they get away with, you know, facing Frieza with all the characters in Dragon Universe because that's just what happened in the story, right? And, you know, it'd be kind of a thing of like, of course Kid Gohan fights Frieza, of course, you know, Krillin fights Frieza, of course Piccolo fights Frieza, of course Vegeta fights Frieza, of course Goku fights Frieza, and they all made the fights unique and stuff because of the transformations of Frieza and stuff like that. Same with the Cell fights. It's just like, it just doesn't work with Budokai 2, unfortunately. It just kind of makes it to where you're just fighting the same character over and over again. So I think more than anything, it unfortunately just kind of exposed the freaking, you know, the lack of roster in this game and stuff, you know. And now, you know, overall though, pretty cool introduction for the fusion stuff as well in that level. You know, playing as Gotenks is a freaking blast in that because you don't have to worry about the actual time limit and whatnot. And, you know, once again, you know, it is cool that they give you the what if absorptions by Frieza and Cell, but overall, you know, it probably would have been cool if they could have figured out something else in that way. Maybe it could have been a mechanic if just Buu beats anybody in the level, he absorbs them. But I guess that would have been too much work. On top of that, though, we're gonna move this into Stage 8, which once again has the issue of the story. I'm like 90% sure you can play as Gohan in Stage 7. Very sure of it. But the next stage, it's like, hey, Gohan, I thought you died. Where were you? Gohan says, oh, I was on Planet of the Kai, training with Supreme Kai, this and that, you know. Of course, that's what actually happens in the show, but in the context of the game, why were they training on that, you know? Of course, it's a little bit, it makes a more sense than the Stage 7 explanation of why, you know, they're going to the hyperbolic and all this other stuff, but I don't know, it just kind of doesn't sit well with me in that sense. It's just kind of like, couldn't the level have just started in which Buu is attacking the city, Gohan takes notice and is ready to fight, Supreme Kai comes down and is like, wait Gohan, let me power you up so you have what it takes, you know, let me unlock your potential so that way, you know, you have what it takes to hold your own against, you know, Buu. And then, you know, Supreme Kai's like, hey Goku, you gotta meet me for the Batara thing just in case if this doesn't work, all that stuff. I think that would have been a much better setup if they had just kind of gone with something like that, you know. You can agree to disagree, but I think in the context of the what if story, and as well as just making the story more their own once again, I think it would have been at least a, you know, a more interesting idea, something that the player can be like, oh, okay, I guess I get it. And maybe they could have made a reason as to why Super Buu was there. I think it would have been cool. Maybe Hercule could have been like they could have made an ally character for this board game thing, in which, you know, Hercule's there, and you know, Super Buu is just like, you know, I want to fight the strongest guy or whatever. So he thinks that's Hercule somehow, and you know, your objective is to freaking protect Hercule. Or you can even just play as Hercule in that level, and then it would also make sense because to unlock, I think it's Videl, you had to beat Ultimate Buu or Buhan, whatever you want to call him, as Hercule. So I think that would have been a nice tie-in with that too. But you know, maybe there could have been better ways to do it. And, you know, maybe if you do like how it handled, you know, no judgment. I just think I'd like to see a little more reasons for the kind of things rather than just, oh, hey, he's here. Oh, yes, we gotta fight him. And now that pretty much takes us to Stage 9. Well, I guess Stage 8, I didn't mention the Batara. Obviously, the mechanic of having to go and, you know, have Supreme Kai meet with Goku, then Goku meet with Vegeta after being resurrected. Once again, I don't know. I mean, I'm a little mixed on it at this point because Vegeta does sacrifice himself. He has the opportunity to do that. Stage 6 when he blows himself up against Majin Buu, but I feel like they should have just overall, instead of making that like a special ending, they could have just made it to where that just happens no matter what. You know, at the end of the level when you beat Majin Buu. That way it makes sense every time, you know, Supreme Kai resurrects frickin' Vegeta and stuff like that. And then it's cool that when they meet up, they become Vegito, and that's once again the fusion, the Patara. That's just some of the most fun stuff in the game. So I'll give them credit for that. Just, you know, just awesome, making it feel like you're so much stronger than everybody else in the game and stuff like that with the Patara fusion. That's just awesome. So I give them all the credit in the world for that. But just kind of wish they would have had a little more thought put into the to how they presented it in the story and stuff like that. And for all I know, who knows, maybe they did have a lot more original ideas, and maybe someone, you know, at Funimation or whoever, who just, you know, the editors of Dragon Ball or whatever, I don't know how that works. Maybe they could have just, maybe they were like, hey, look, we just want this to resemble the story a little bit more. And especially since the first game with Majin Buu in it and all that stuff. So I don't know the changes in the story and all that, but I just think that, you know, it would have been nice if they took more liberties and just made things make more sense overall in the story. And, you know, this is stage 9, this is the final one. There's obviously a bonus stage 10 or whatever. I think I went over in one of my earlier videos. It's not even really a story. It's just something to show off the Tiencha What If fusion, which is pretty cool. And it was a bonus thing, and it was Japanese only. And in a weird way, it like promoted like the magazine and some other special edition. All sorts of weird stuff. Like, this game has a lot of really weird, like, greatest hits editions are pretty cool in this series, but like how they add like one or two like things, like an outfit or whatever. But the extra additions they added to this game for like weird like promotional stuff is kind of just odd to me, if that makes sense. I don't know. Like, you'd have to check it out for yourself to see just how weird it actually is. But as far as stage 9 goes, I'm not really too, you know, I don't have too many issues with it. I think it's a very fun, climactic final thing. If Frieza and Cell didn't show up in every single level, other than this and one other one, I think it would have been awesome for them to just kind of randomly come back. You know, there's no explanation why they come back. They just do. I guess, I don't know. But, like, even then, it makes sense. Supreme Kai was there in the last stage. He sees that Kid Buu came back. So, I guess it makes sense, you know, to transport it to the planet of the Kais. But it also doesn't make sense how the heck Kid Buu even came into fruition, right? Like, how we just beat him up in Wuhan, and all of a sudden he just spat everybody out. Like, obviously, I've said this a million times, in the context of the show, we know. But for people who haven't played it and just the what if story and stuff like that kind of already has taken liberties, why not just explain that something happened, or even just a small cutscene or something? Not even a cutscene, just like 5 lines of dialogue of just, you know, Vegito saying, hey, look, we got to get these guys out of here. Supreme Kai, you know how? Supreme Kai says something like, oh yeah, you know, if you give him a good punch in the stomach or something stupid like that, I don't know. Just anything to explain why, you know, he gets rid of all the people they absorbed and all this other stuff, and Kid Buu and things like that. So, other than that, I mean, Stage 9, pretty awesome. Cell, Juniors, Saibamen, lots of fights, unique stage, you know, nice interactions and all sorts of stuff. So, once again, and then the last thing I guess I would have to complain about the stage is there's no dialogue for this end thing here for whatever reason, which I don't know, I don't really understand, but I don't know, that's just a lot of parts of the games and whatnot. But overall, I don't really have, just because it's just, hey, no story, let's just sell this kind of deal. So I don't really have too many issues with this final mission. I think it does a very good job of finishing things off and whatnot. So thank you guys for listening to me and my critique of the entirety of the story once again and all this and that. If you have made it this far, please share your thoughts down below. Do you think I'm just complaining too much? You know, share your takes on Dragon Ball Z, how you think they adapted the story in this game, what you think of the game mode overall, and anything that you guys would change about this game mode or the game story, or who you would put in and take out and all this and stuff like that. So, and honestly, I'm just gonna ask you guys outright: do you guys enjoy listening to me talk about the cut content and my thoughts on how I think the game should go and stuff like that? Be honest. If you don't, if you do, let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to check out next week's episode. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe. But above all else, please remember to have a nice day.